So people are getting very stressed about the dissertation. They're looking for any type of advice that can help them with a dissertation. You will know what people mean when they say synthesize. You will know what people mean when they say be critical. Where you begin to prepare for your dissertation is actually in your coursework. It can be very fulfilling and it can be very, very exciting. And one of the best ways to know if you've really done good work when it comes to your dissertation is what's the question of the week? Which is better, coursework or the dissertation? The simple answer is that it is both. And the long answer is that it's complicated. So I'm going to explain over the next few minutes the ways in which coursework is important and the ways in which the dissertation is important and how the two are connected. One of the things that people don't realize, I think, and we see it show up a lot because the last time I conducted a survey and I asked people, what would you most like for me to talk about? The dissertation came out top of the list. So people are getting very stressed about the dissertation. They're looking for any type of advice that can help them with a dissertation. But where you begin to prepare for your dissertation is actually in your coursework. So the way that education works in general is that normally you will start at a very basic level where we say you acquire surface learning. So if you have taken, let's say, a degree in supply chain management, because this is my area of specialty, within the degree of supply chain management, the things that you spend time doing in the beginning is understanding what are supply chains, what are the key phenomena in this field that are worth knowing. So the bullwhip effect for us is one of the most common ones that is replicated in multiple settings over time. And so you learn these basics, but you don't necessarily get to internalize them. And your first bits of assessment are going to be focusing on getting to see how much of this basic knowledge you have mastered. Of course, at the master's level, the expectation is a bit higher because you already have done an undergrad. So we would be also asking or checking to see what are your essay writing skills. Are you able to do a very basic synthesis? How good is your critical analysis? How good are your critical thinking skills? But these are done at a very basic level and sort of at a piecemeal way. So it could be that with each piece of assessment, we emphasize just a few of the most important skills that you're supposed to be picking up as part of the learning journey. So the coursework becomes a very important foundation for what you're going to do for the dissertation. And it's really nice because for most of the parts, the problems are structured. We focus on a few elements at a time, and we may not demand the level of depth as we would expect when you actually get to the dissertation. So with surface learnings, this is the first step that you're going to be expected to go through to graduate from, and your earlier pieces of coursework usually will reflect that. They're going to be a bit more light touch. But then you are expected to progress from that level of what we call surface learning, and then you have to acquire deep learning. When you acquire deep learning, you are slowly developing into a master of sorts in relation to your particular topic. So you actually understand the nuances. You have a bit more confidence in terms of questioning some of the things that you come across, and you're actually able sometimes to you're also able to explain a lot of things. So you're more than able to name and describe things, but you can explain them and you can nuance them and you can contrast them. And then you're able to even make links as a basis of that learning. So for example, if we would say, what are the things that will drive a bullwhip effect in a particular situation, you are able to actually identify those things. What are the demand patterns like? For example, how much visibility is there across the supply chain and where might the biggest risks actually lie? So you are starting to learn a bit more, and your assessment also gets a bit tougher because then the expectation is that you are going to be able, you're slowly finding your voice, but you are still not necessarily that creator of knowledge that comes with the dissertation. So when it comes to the dissertation, this is where you go through what we call the consolidation of deep learning. So everything that you have learned, you now bring together, but not just as a way of using everything that you have learned as the only boundary, but you're expected to look beyond it. So can you find unfamiliar situations, unfamiliar contexts, and then be able to draw in insights from what you already know and create something new in addition to that? So if you would actually take your coursework with the commitment that it deserves, if you would give it the attention that it deserves, if you would spend the amount of time that is recommended in terms of that, you will see that the dissertation gets a bit easier because you're not starting from scratch, but you have built confidence to the level that it's not going to feel so overwhelming when it comes to then dealing with a much less structured undertaking that the dissertation is going to be. So from that perspective, in terms of how you learn and how you build up that knowledge, your coursework is much more important because it is the foundation for what you're going to do for the dissertation. But then when it comes to what counts, what people are going to pay more attention to, what your institution is going to value more, then the dissertation is more important. And the reason is because with the dissertation, this is the most independent piece of work that you are going to do. And this is where you're going to show at the highest level how much you have learned and how much of a capability to create new knowledge you have actually acquired. So for this reason, in a lot of the degree programs, the dissertation will carry a significant amount of weight. It can be around 30%. I think that might be typical. But if I remember well, I did a research master. It was a 2 years master's, and the whole final year was actually dedicated towards my dissertation. So I'm assuming that my dissertation was 50% of the overall weight. I completed some coursework assessment in the first year, and all of it got graded, but its overall weighting relative to my dissertation, everything combined for that coursework must have been around 50%. So this already tells you then that even though in the end the emphasis is going to be on the dissertation, the whole reason is that with the coursework, you are being given a kind of safe space to develop the capabilities, and then within the dissertation itself, this is where you get to show how much you have learned. And this is also where you get the most steep learning curve. It's like you're left more to yourself and you're left to figure things out more. Then you're just thrown on the deep end and we say, we've given you the basic swimming skills. Now try to navigate this. And if you do it successfully, then you have reached the level of mastery that is expected. So for anyone who hasn't come to the dissertation phase yet, if I had one piece of advice, that would be take your coursework seriously, because everything that you do during that time is an investment in your capabilities. And then it's going to mean that the dissertation gets easier. You will know what people mean when they say synthesize. You will know what people mean when they say be critical. You will know what is meant by, I don't know, a relevant research question. You will even know sometimes what will be a relevant gap, because as part of your coursework, you would have had these types of discussions, and maybe you would have already spotted something just because you were keen and interested and present, then you were able to find something. So thanks to the person that asked this question. I had promised that I would save the name, but I forgot. So this is my number one advice. And then, of course, to everyone else who finds themselves in the dissertation and they had just stumbled through the coursework and they have no idea what to do, my YouTube page, Dr. Noni Extra, has a playlist now dedicated towards the proposal and the dissertation. So if you go to my YouTube page, Dr. Noni Extra, you will find my playlist Tips and Guidance, and it's really focused on the research proposal and thesis. And so from there, I have multiple things related to the proposal, the different sections of your dissertation, and also even some common misunderstandings about academic writing. So if you would know what the expectations are from our end as assessors, as educators, some of it actually is going to provide you with a lot of relief. So just to give an example, we are not as obsessed about the perfection in the language as people think. Actually, most of the times, we will miss a lot of the language errors if a piece of work is written very, very well in the intellectual sense. So we are tracking your thought patterns, and we are really, like, the language only becomes an issue when it is so bad that it gets hard for us to understand what you are writing. Beyond that, a lot of the grammatical errors are going to be ignored or even missed. And in many cases, if you look at a lot of the marking schemes, some of them don't even give any points for the language. So this already tells you like how low it is in terms of the list of the things that are important. When I mark, I think most of the times I'm going to give it maximum 5%. And this 5% also includes the general structure, the readability, how tidy the document is. So it's not so important that you would have to spend so much time trying to get the language perfect. What's more important is that you are able to present a trail of evidence on your thought processes and how they evolved and how you brought in different perspectives to inform your thinking in the end. And one of the best ways to know if you've really done good work when it comes to your dissertation is if the conclusion surprises even you. You look at it and you think, this is not what I thought at all. And most times when we start writing the dissertations, we think we already know the answer. And sometimes we feel like we're just going to have to gather the evidence that's going to show that we are right. But then as you mature in the process and you start to understand how other people write and what the expectations are, you will start to realize that actually the academic writing process is not just one of looking at what is out there and being critical of it in the sense of finding what's wrong with it, but it's also a process of being critical of yourself. It's self-interrogation and using the existing lenses, like the theories or concepts that we rely on, to actually confront those biases and then to bring forth something that's going to be more balanced and something that is going to surprise even you. You'll be like, I never thought that this would be the conclusion. But you know what? Looking at my process and looking at the evidence before me, actually, now that I think about it, it makes a lot of sense. This is what you are on a quest to do. And it can be very fulfilling and it can be very, very exciting if you actually commit to it and you get through those difficult, uncomfortable feelings that come with the process in the beginning.